Cougs. Yep.
All right, so we'll get this rolling right now. And first, can you just tell me a little bit about how this would work for our viewers? Can you explain how much of this is private funding versus public funding?
Yeah, so we've said all along that this is going to be a private investor-led effort. And yes, the numbers have all gotten bigger with construction designs of ballparks and expansion fees that have been moving. But the bottom line is we're probably still looking now at a 4.5 to $5 billion overall project investment. And so when we circled back and were, pleased that the state legislators and lawmakers were willing to go propose a modernization of SB 5, that number is a significant help to the overall $5 billion project. So it will go against construction cost of probably a $1.8 billion ballpark, which will be appreciated. But in relative terms, it's a smaller 18 to 20% percentage of the overall project.
And so this $800 million bond, it would be paid back to the state via those income taxes from players and team employees. Do I have that correct? Just want to make sure that's correct.
You do have that absolutely correct with the one caveat. It's not just the home team and the team employees, it's the visitors players as well. So we'll benefit by having, Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge and Mike Trout and others coming to play our Portland team. And again, using their tax income as part of the bonding.
And so I know when you build this stadium, you're also going to be investing in hotels and restaurants and other things that go along with the needs of the stadium. And I was wondering, would tax revenue also be made for the state off of those surrounding businesses?
No, this is a very, very specific and only identified towards construction of the ballpark. The rest of the ancillary development will be on us on the private side.
And then do you have examples of other cities that were funded this way? I know you mentioned the Viking Stadium in the public hearing.
Yeah, we did. We had Dr. Mike Wilkerson today kind of lay out a few examples of, and mostly the Minnesota, which is one of the most recent ones that retired that bonding something like almost 20 years early because of the rising cost of players' salaries, et cetera, and some of their other bonding mechanisms. So there are plenty of cities and states and groups that have used the so-called jock tax. I think it was pioneered by the Pittsburgh Pirates 3 decades ago when they first started it, and then a lot of people picked up on it. So yeah, there's lots of great examples. We're trying to learn what's worked best, what's going to work for Oregon, what's going to work for our effort, and we feel like just modernizing what was already on the books, SB 5 to SB now 110, was the simplest, easiest way to execute against this vision and not have an additional tax or new tax at all on any Oregonian.
Are there any concerns that taxing players will make Portland a less interesting spot for the MLB? Is there any concern at all based on that?
No, because it's common practice everywhere now. So we have Jed Lowry on our team now, a 14, 15-year ex MLB player. And Jed will tell you that he and his accountants were filing tax returns in every place they played. And so it's just a factor of if a Portland player shows up in New York to play the Mets or the Yankees, they've calculated a day rate, and New York wants their tax revenue from the time they spent in their city and in their state. So this is common practice, won't be anything new to the ball players when they get here in Portland.
And then you mentioned in the public hearing too that there are several different cities competing for these expansion spots. However, there are only two West Coast teams. So we kind of have our rival in Salt Lake City. How does our legislation, this proposed legislation, compare to the legislation that did pass in Utah this past session?
Yeah, it would compare very well in terms of the top end capacity and bonding and numbers. We wanted to get, equal to, close, or maybe a little bit better. And so we're still, pulling all that together. But what was submitted would put us in a great position. The difference is the way we're asking for that bonding is very different than what Utah and Salt Lake put on the books. They're pulling a number of different tax increases on their citizens and bonding it. We're only doing it through the players and the visiting players and the team. So different mechanics, but similar numbers to get there.
And then just a last question for you. Is there any potential that we will need to revisit using public funds in some capacity as we move down the line? This is maybe 5, 6 years in the future when we have a possible team, when we're already constructing. Is there any chance that we may need to pull some public funds later in this process?
No, we're not anticipating, taking people through the, making sausage, again on all the tax stuff. We think the SB 110 would be a big win. We're working on Zidell yards and all of the, the issues and the infrastructure needs. And so that's been a very robust conversation with the city, and they've been very open to helping us figure out what's going to be required to get us shovel ready and make this a world-class ballpark. But other than infrastructure and the SB 110, we're not anticipating any other, public subsidies unless they come collaboratively through, just us working the project. We're not planning on taking anything to a referendum. We don't have any planned increases on Oregonians now. We just want to execute what seems to be the most reasonable and simple way to get to where we need to get to put us in the most favorable position.
Thank you. And is there anything else you'd just like to add in general about this effort to bring baseball to Portland?
Well, it's getting very exciting. We love all of the great progress and all of the support we're getting at the state level, at the city level. And again, just a reminder, because it can be confusing when you hear a big number and you hear tax and bonding. It is no new taxes or additional taxes on Oregonians. This is really a mechanic around aggregating the players, both home and visiting, around their tax revenue and doing it in a way that's been executed across many other places. So I would just want to reiterate that and make sure everybody understands it.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a very busy man, and I appreciate your time here and hope you have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thank you. You too.